Who wants to be a property millionaire?
Mindset-wise, you're not thinking about, is this going to be the best apartment in the world in 30 years' time? No. This isn't something you're going to hold till the day you die.
You want to make this happen, get creative. Go have fun with it.
From memory, my one was...
Yours was that too, yes.
Yeah, it was...
We knew that because we saw it.
I think it was a 290 purchase price and...
like 400 val.
400 val. And I think in the valuation system, it was misclassified as like a two-bedder or something.
Who wants to be a property millionaire? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to go through in this podcast. We're going to construct a property portfolio from scratch. We're starting off with a mere 50 grand and we're going to turn it into millions of dollars and achieve something that we all want: financial freedom and passive income. This is the holy grail of property investing. We're going to show you exactly how you can do it by modeling out a property portfolio, where to buy, specific locations, specific property strategies, all starting from 50 grand. Curtis, what do you think? It feels like a game show.
Yeah, it is.
Am I too pumped?
Do I just have to be like me? I want to be a property millionaire and then that's the end of it?
Yeah, you get a millionaire, you become a millionaire. Okay, so what we're going to do here is frame it up with, I am a new property investor.
Yep.
I've got 50 grand. We'll talk about that a little bit. And my goals are, do you want to let us know, what are the goals that I have as a young property investor or new property investor? I might be young, I might be someone new to the country, I might be just someone starting out investing, middle-aged, don't really know, but these are my goals. What are the goals here?
Yeah, so we're trying to get goal of being millionaires within a 5-year window.
From 50 grand to millionaire.
We've given ourselves, 5 years. So it's a relatively short amount of time given the start, but like not nothing.
Yes.
So that's one goal. 100K passive income as quickly as possible. Passive income is another goal, like a lot of people have when you build this property portfolio, hopefully it's actually doing something. So goal number 2. And then goal number 3, own our own PPOR inside that 5-year window.
Yes. So buy your own PPOR, I think is what I've got here. You know, if you live in Sydney, you probably won't own it within the 5 years.
No, not own it outright, but like,
buy it. Okay.
Stop renting.
Yes. So these are obviously incredibly ambitious goals for a lot of people. You turn 50 grand into $1 million, you probably think, this guy's nuts, property spruiker, absolute, selling something. No. That is not what we're doing here. We are just setting some frameworks for what we are trying to achieve, being ambitious to begin with. This is my starting point. Okay, I'm going to tell everyone a little bit of a story here. When I was 23 years old, I had about 50 grand. It was about 35 grand back then, a little bit of inflation adjusting, probably worth 50 grand today. Within about 5 years, when I was doing my own net wealth calcs, if I did something like that, that's probably around the time where I turned into a property millionaire or a net worth millionaire from property price appreciation that occurred. Within 10 years, I owned my own home in Sydney. We probably did that 5 years ago, so we did that around then. And the 100K passive income is having about $2 million in net assets, because you can sell down and find your way there. So the frameworks for this is entirely achievable if you take on action, take on a whole range of steps. And the beginning point of that action is you believe that you can and you are willing to do the work to go and do it. How do I know this? Because I've done it myself. It's transformed my own financial future and my own direction of life. I've really enjoyed doing it. And it's happened to a different sort of degree, different numbers. But the starting point is the belief that it can be done. This is the mindset to it.
Yeah,
do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. Because to get from where we are starting to where we want to be in 5 years, a simple kind of like buy and hold, very passive kind of way of doing it is not really going to cut the mustard. Yeah, exactly. This is a very active, finding a way to build wealth quickly. Lots of wealth very fast, ideally. And that requires, you might need to do some renovations. You need to find markets that are rising. You need a few things to fall in your favor, but it's doable.
Yeah, for sure. One of the upsides of doing this is we're going to get a little bit of a crispness to lending strategies and things that you don't know to actually go and achieve this. So let's start.
Yeah.
The first 50K, you need to come up with it. You have a whole range of options here, and this is where you need to be gung-ho. Ideally, don't just save your way there and just put it in your bank account, your transaction account, earning 0% interest and save your way there. That's too slow for these goals. You can do that, but plan your goals out for longer, especially if it takes you 2 or 3 years to save that 50K. What can someone do here?
Yeah, so essentially anything you can. So
Yes.
if you're into shares, you might be putting a little bit in shares and trying to hope for some capital growth and turn your 20K into 40K.
The Chinese stock market, how's that going?
Yeah,
Curtis?
you need to be. Oh yeah, I got a
you've
decent
done
return
this,
out of that
right?
like some while ago. I don't know. I'm out of that now. I got a wedding to pay for. That's all been liquidated.
Okay, cool. So for context, Curtis invested in the Chinese stock market, and I was like, "What? What's going on here?"
I think that was a little COVID project when I was a bit bored and crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, it worked out all right. Paid for a wedding.
That's awesome to hear. But that's exactly what you do. You do crazy stuff to get your first 50K.
Yeah.
You know, if you got these crazy ambitious goals, the big scary ones, you cannot just follow the standard formula of just saving my way. You can't take baby action. Baby action will lead to pretty average results. You need to take some serious action, like investing in the Chinese stock market like Curtis did. I'm not saying to go and do that, but like that's a crazy idea to go and accelerate the rate at which you save and turn whatever little bit of savings you have into an accelerated amount quickly.
Yeah, and it's breaking down the goals a little bit because, getting to the goal of, want to be a property millionaire in 5 years, all these big goals, it's hard to take any immediate action on that. But if you reset the goal to being like, all right, I need 50K cash in order to start this buying process. So then it's like, all right, if I need 50K, that's a little bit more achievable. You can take some risk. You can take some punts. Find a way to get there. If you've got hopefully a little bit of a base of savings already, then you're just pushing to get that little bit more to reach 50, so you can start taking action on the property side of things.
Yes. So we start with 50K intentionally here. 50K will help us buy something meaningful rather than buying the bottom of the barrel type stuff in the marketplace.
Well, if you start with 20K, then the options become so limited, it's difficult to get off the ground, basically. So there is some starting level that you need. Yeah, you need 50K to play with, basically.
Yeah. You can probably get away with 40, but you probably want 50K to be buying. You're more likely to be able to accelerate your property growth if you start with 50K. So that's where I came up with a 50K figure. Plus, I needed a round number for this little exercise that we are going through. So the idea is take on risk. Shares, ETFs, Bitcoin. Bitcoin's volatile. I don't really know anything about Bitcoin. It's not a Bitcoin podcast, but it is volatile, and I need to accelerate my wealth creation. So maybe I'm going to look at assets like this, red or black at the casino. You want to go really wild?
I've heard someone flips cars, used cars.
Flips cars. Oh, our associate.
Buying, selling used cars.
He trades something. Our associate trades things on like Facebook, Gumtree to, come up with additional return on his income and trying to generate a little bit of money, buy something, makes $500, selling it for a little bit more, just hustling to find your way there.
Yeah. So this isn't the most exciting part, but essentially got to find a way to get to 50K.
Okay. Parents.
Yeah. Parents
can make this a little bit easier.
Yeah,
hey, mom and dad.
Whatever it may be, that's the starting point you get to. And then
we've got OnlyFans written here, but I wouldn't recommend that because I'm happily married and that will get me in trouble.
Concerned about how little you would make. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Point is, anything to accelerate your savings, wealth creation. If you want to make this happen, get creative. Go have fun with it. Find a way to get it done. Bitcoin, anything. I like poker. I like playing my hand there. I have never won any money at it or, invested any serious money into it. But, what it takes, get creative. You're going to learn resourcefulness through this process as well, which is a very valuable skill for this property investing game. Resourcefulness is one skill there, and this is where you can accelerate this journey to make it quicker. What did I do? I will circle back. Mine's boring as it gets, but I took on white-collar work very, very early. I got a scholarship to my university. I think they paid me like $45,000 over 3 years. Pretty much all of it just went banked into savings, and my living expenses were covered via actual work that I did on the side to actually make it happen. That's really, really boring, but I didn't have a job. So I actually accelerated this a bit quicker. As soon as I got a job, this is the treasury story that we've touched on. Within a few months of me getting a job, earning an income, that is when I could actually buy. And I'd already parked that $50,000 in sort of savings just from savings during uni. And those little fun things done, some sports betting, I think, things like that. I wouldn't really say to go do these things, but David Warner won me $1,000. I remember on his first test where he scored 100 against New Zealand. I'm pretty sure I remember it specifically. I'm like, David Warner, he's going to be an absolute legend. Let's punt on this. And he won me $1,000 off a $10 bet or $100 bet or something like that. I remember that.
Yeah, and then when it came time to do your first purchase, you emptied out all your savings.
Yeah,
so like
had none.
all of that, you threw it all at the aggressive like property acquisition journey.
Exactly. That's pivoting into the first move. Once you've got your money, your first 50K,
Yep.
you can go watch other YouTube videos about how to make that. There'll be plenty of content there. We spitballed a few ideas. But the first move, what am I going to do now? I've got my 50 grand or in and around there. The first move is to take a move. Do not, I repeat, so many people we speak to, so many of my friends, so many people, they just sit on it and then turn that 50 grand into 100 grand, 200 grand. That takes them 10, 15 years and they're sitting there in their mid-30s after starting to save when they're like 16 years old and they're just sitting there with a pile of cash in their bank account feeling like, hey, look, I've got 300 grand. Being like, yeah, but that 300 grand doesn't buy you much anymore. It barely gets your house deposit. Saving your way to wealth creation will not get you there. So action number one, first move is to make a move. You are now ready to play in the property space. Let's get into it. What are you going to do, Curtis?
Yeah, all right. So I've got my option. Like, I think given the lofty objectives here,
Yes.
you need capital growth in whatever you buy and you need it fast, basically.
Yes.
You need to buy something and then you need it to be worth a lot more than you bought it for in a relatively short space of time.
Yep.
So to me, my way of thinking, two ways to do that. You're either buying in a market that's rising.
Yep.
Or you're renovating / increasing, doing work on the property and increasing its value.
Yes.
So my strategy is try do both. Try find
both. I love it.
try find a super, super cheap apartment. Like I reckon the budget, given a 50K budget, we're probably looking at like 250K as a purchase price.
Possible. Somewhere in Australia.
Yeah, which might get you some regional areas. Like North Queensland's really, really hot at the moment. So like, Townsville, maybe Melbourne, if we think Melbourne's going to go good, but you're looking for a market that is rising quickly or that you believe is going to rise quickly. I would say in the next 12 months, like the timeframes are condensed here given our goals.
Yep.
So you want something that you're going to get some market growth in the next 12 months.
Yep.
And if you have a 250 purchase price and a 50K cash kitty, that should leave you maybe 10K of reno work that you can do some cosmetic stuff. So you're trying to repaint, do some very, very basic cosmetic things that will, a little bit like we spoke about on the Melbourne podcast. If you're starting in Melbourne, you can increase the yield and you also might get 30, 40K of capital growth out of the work you do, plus maybe another 30, 40K of capital growth out of the market, ideally. So you're pairing those two things together.
I really like it. He's rolling his sleeves up metaphorically. I'm rolling my sleeves up. I've rolled them up. But metaphorically, he's rolling his sleeves up, getting into the work to make it happen. You're going to have to take on an attitude like that. You're resourceful because you've come up with your 50 grand. If you didn't ask for your parents for it, if you've come up with it yourself, you're probably resourceful. Now you need to put in the work. It won't be easy. You want to achieve these goals? Stop thinking it's easy. Stop thinking everyone's lucky. Stop thinking like that. Train your mind into, I will go take control of my future and I will make it happen. That's exactly what Curtis is talking about here. He's talking about taking action. He's talking about finding and identifying rising markets. And he's talking about putting in some sweat equity, doing in a little minor renovation. And he's buying at $250,000, just using some math here. So as the broker here, what's this, a 12% deposit?
Yep.
That's
so you're
30
doing
grand?
12% deposit of about 30K, 10K in stamp duty and costs, and 10K left as your little renovation kitty.
I love this.
Yeah.
What a play.
See how you can go from 250 asset purchase price, how quickly can you get it to 350 basically?
Perfect. I actually think this is the number one thing to do. Assessing all markets. I think this is probably the best move to make, probably the move that we'd make. I can imagine us. We flew around the country when
you're doing your first purchase.
When we did our first purchase, all around different areas, looking at plays like this and adapting to market conditions at the time. It wasn't the move that we made, but that I made. But I do think it is a very, very good move. I'm going to give you some locations as well. We've talked about this in other podcasts. Townsville, Mackay, Rockhampton, Gladstone even. Apartments might be a bit tricky in these locations, but do your homework here. Perth, lots of Perth. Melbourne as well is another particular area that you may want to look at. Melbourne I'm a bit concerned with because I've set such short timeframes and I want to take on so much risk. I think Melbourne apartments may not actually fit this plan so much, but if I extrapolate it out, be like, calm down. I'm happy. I'm not, I'm only in my mid-20s. I don't need to achieve retirement type goals by the time I'm 30 or 35. Like, let's push it out to 45.
Yep, then I think Melbourne's a great play.
Is a very good play as well.
Yeah, to contextualize it, I think you're looking at like, look, I want it to be worth 350. I want 100K return inside 12 months.
Yes.
Basically.
Yep.
So from 250 to 350, I'm chucking 50K at it.
Yep.
I want to see that valuation at 350, ideally in 6 months, which requires a pretty quickly rising market, but within 12 months. And that's where if you feel like the market's going to go sideways for 12 or 18 months, then it stretches out the timeframes.
Yes. To help those even more in these shoes right now, other locations and how to find those locations. I would be getting very data-centric here and buying in areas where demand outstrips supply. All of the locations that I mentioned, the Northern Queensland pockets, Perth in particular has a lot of these locations, and that podcast that we did earlier with 5 regional locations, all of those areas will be on my list for this type of strategy because I must get short-term growth and the market must do a lot of the work for me. But on top of that, I am going to do some more work by the sweat equity component and create it in case the market doesn't do it for me. I've created it myself through the renovation work that we've done. I'm probably going to tailor my approach a little bit here and look at which areas have demand for apartments that outsupply as well. So it won't just be looking at housing areas and family-friendly areas. So when you're doing a deep dive into these locations, make sure that there's apartment demand there too. That might pivot you to bigger areas because some of these regional areas, people just don't want to live in apartments there because you can get nice big houses for $300,000. So you just need to be specific about the areas you're looking at and ensure that there's apartment demand in these locations as well. So,
and I think you just need a little bit of context for what this kind of purchase is too. So mindset-wise, you're not thinking about, is this going to be the best apartment in the world in 30 years' time? No. This isn't something you're going to hold till the day you die. This isn't your best asset that you're ever going to own kind of thing. This is, how am I going to get something that's worth $250 today to be worth $350 as quickly as possible?
Exactly.
That's the only criteria, really.
Brilliant. Nice and simple. I'm going to add in what I would probably do. I really like your approach. I think I would do that. But let's add in what I would do. I am going to be a little bit lazier. I think if I can make it work, I'm going to start with a $350,000 budget. I'm putting that $10,000 renovation into higher purchase price. I'm not renovating. I'm just really bad at sweat equity and I couldn't paint anything if I needed to. Kurt knows this firsthand when we tried to paint our office and I really stuffed up a straight wall. So I'm going to learn my limitations and being like, I'm going to sit at a computer and do this because I'm good at data and charts and understanding all of that stuff. I'm going to go put $350,000 into a high risk area, into a very risky area that exhibits the potential to go price-wise. That's really taking off early in its phase. So I'm looking at a couple different locations and willing to take on a little bit of a punt here. I'm buying in Darwin. I'm spending $350,000 buying whatever I can buy in Darwin, because I think Darwin has the potential to be worth $450,000 very, very quickly. And I want to ride that wave. I want to ride it early. And this is an opportunity to do so. I might be getting it wrong. I might be getting it wrong completely. But I'm going to go do that. I may also include 2 other locations. I may look at Gladstone. Yes, you heard that right. Absolutely crazy. We've just heard from Matt Wilson on our podcast. And he's talked about being at the right point in the cycle, fairly cheap price points available. I may look at Gladstone. I might look at Northern Queensland pockets, but I think I might be priced out. And I might be a bit too late to the party. So I will look at Darwin because I think it exhibits the frameworks of short-term growth. And I really need that. And this is where the magic comes in. Curtis. You are the magician. You are going to get me desktop files from everybody within 3 or 6 months, and then you're going to manufacture this beautiful growth for me that I need. Whether it's real or not, I need you to pull a rabbit out of the hat and order me 6 desktop valuations with 6 different banks and being like, surely one of these popped out the 450 number.
Yep.
What do you think?
It's a surprisingly common and successful strategy.
Yes.
So like you say, depending on what broker you're working with, you have the capacity to basically continue asking the what is my property valued at question over and over and over again to a lot of different banks until one of them gives you an answer that you like. And you have to cross your fingers that happens inside 6 months. I think This is actually what the strategy that I used when I bought my place in Canberra, if you remember.
You did. I used it for my Queensland property that didn't actually rise in value at all, and it did on a computerized val. Thank you, Major Bank, who gave it to me.
Yeah, I think from memory, my one was...
Yours was that too, yes.
Yeah, it was...
We knew that because
I think
we
it was a
saw it.
$290 purchase price and...
like 400 val.
400 val. And I think in the valuation system, it was misclassified as like a 2-better or something. But anyway, when you get answers you like, you don't question it.
Yes.
Yes. So that strategy can work. It's not guaranteed, but there's a bit of luck involved, but it's powerful.
If you want to achieve this, one of the main reasons why I'm pretty confident that if I was in these shoes, I'd be able to achieve this today is because of all the learnings that I've picked up, all the investors, all the conversations, all the stories, all the networks, all the people. But one crystal clear message is property is a game of finance. If you know the finance hacks, the finance tricks, the finance secrets, you get a little bit more of a leg up, a little bit more of a chance to actually make this happen. And because I know that the rising tide in some of these locations, I know how to find them. I'm using all of the data tools to go find me where demand is outstripping supply. Darwin. That's where it is, everyone. Take a look there. I can find that, and then I can desktop valuation my way through the rise too, and then get that money back out really, really quickly, depending my income is enough, but I can get that money back out really, really quickly, and that helps me go again.
Yeah.
Which is my second and third and fourth move maybe. It is a game of repeating this as much as possible until I hit my borrowing capacity ceiling.
Yeah.
I might be even willing to go to non-banks in some capacity here for later purchases, but I am creating my foundational assets. These are the first property investments that I have. I need to make this portfolio size as large as possible because that is what's going to grow. The portfolio size is going to grow. If I can build a $1.5, a $2.5 million property portfolio somehow by repeating this game 3, 4, 5, 6 times, we'll talk about the limitations here, but if we could do that as far as you can take it, then you have a bigger portfolio that's growing. Now, if you did this in Rockhampton last year, you put $1 million down, you would have made nearly $500,000 already. You're halfway towards your goal by putting in debt. You only need, $150,000 in capital, and you've got $500,000 in growth already, just from one location, picking the right location, doing it right. So the power is there. You need to create that asset base that grows for you and turn your little 50 grand into a large asset base using the power of leverage.
Yep.
We're talking about 90% loans here effectively to get a 10x sized asset base from your capital position to go build your portfolio that way.
Yeah. So there's a couple of other strategies that I reckon are like notable mentions.
This is what we did. That's why they're notable.
Yeah, they're notable mentions. I was going to be like, this is one that I did, so I'm going to chuck it in there anyway. So you can buy unregistered land, like off the planned land, basically. Maybe it depends a little bit how the gap until it registers, because obviously if you're trying to get these goals done inside 5 years, if you pick something that isn't going to register for 4 years, it's a bit hard.
Yep.
But basically, it's a bit like an options contract. You can potentially have a very, very low deposit amount, like maybe even as low as like 5%, 10K, something like that on a piece of land that isn't going to register for a year, 18 months, something like that, 6 months. And if the area is growing quickly enough, you are getting pretty big returns by the time that circles around to settle.
Yep.
And the valuation's jumped up and you've got essentially, a very, very low amount of initial cash outlay. So in theory, you could buy a lot of options on a lot of land. And if it grows, that is a good way to maximize your leverage, basically.
Yes. I might even start this. If I reframe this around being like, I don't even have my 50 grand yet. I've only got 10 grand or 15 grand. I might look at this this is a very, very, very specific strategy. So if you can find areas that are changing a lot, like I think Western Melbourne, Western Sydney, is a really good example. There's a lot of suburbs out there. Gledswood Hills, Gregory Hills, Orchard Hills, Aids, out in Western Sydney, out in Western Melbourne, Wyndham Vale, in and around there. These areas have a lot of land estates where the population is going. They exhibit this. If you can buy in early into that change, into that release, that increases the likelihood because these areas will change. They're paddocks at the moment, but soon enough you'll see commercial centres there, shopping centres, things like that, because there's going to be thousands of people, tens of thousands of people that go there in the future. So the area will change. And in that changing of the area, the land price starts appreciating.
Yeah.
So buying in the area early will really help, or into an estate that is like the first release of 12 releases.
Yeah.
And you're relying on the constrained supply of land going out.
Yeah. But
Comes
like,
with risk.
Yeah, but like on a 300K, land purchase, you might be able to get in for 15K.
Exactly. Yeah.
So your cost to get in, it's an option that brings that down probably about as low as you can possibly get.
Exactly. 15 grand. You don't even need 50 because you're not even going to finance it. You don't need a loan. You're not going to pay stamp duty. You're not going to do any of that. Or maybe you won't pay stamp duty until it actually settles.
Yeah.
Depending
But you
on
might
the state.
on-sell it depending on how your contract's set up. You got a few different options, things there. But
have an on-sale clause if you're doing this. This is the punting play. You need a little bit there. If I am doing this, I actually really like this. I'm going to do both of them. I'm going to start off strong. Be like, let's go buy 3 or 4 of these option contracts. Let's go buy them around and buy my Darwin property too, if I can. From my equity release, I'm going to buy a little bit of this.
Yep.
Take on extreme risk to go and do this. I'm willing to lose it a little bit here because I've got the option to on-sell and the option to just forfeit my contract if it doesn't work. And I'm going to try and negotiate the smallest deposits possible.
Yep.
And there's one more thing I'm going to negotiate too, or direct. I'm going to be looking at areas that are rising as well. So I'm probably not buying in Sydney. I am reluctantly buying in Melbourne. I might not be buying there. I'm not too sure about that. Melbourne I'd look at. But if I can, Townsville, it's got land estates.
Yeah.
I just learned about this. Like there's family-friendly properties. I'd be doing my homework there, being like, it's an area where there's constrained housing supply. Construction is really, really difficult. It's really, really slow. It's a rising market. A lot going for it. Land estate there. Can I have an option contract for the year 2026, please? Because I think I'm going to punt. Townsville property prices will be higher, materially higher in 2026 than today. So can I go buy there and buy this option for land at some point in the future? Because when it goes to settle, if you bought the option at 300,000, but the land is worth 400,000, you've made 100 grand from your like $10,000 or $15,000 investment that you've made. It's a huge return, and you haven't financed it. You've used none of your borrowing capacity. It's just there, and you've got the right to buy it. So it is a very, very powerful, risky approach, but powerful approach to accelerate. The same approach works with off-the-plan apartments as well.
Same idea.
Yep. Same idea.
Exact same concept.
A little bit trickier to execute, I think, particularly in big off-the-plan apartment areas. But sometimes you can find off-the-plan townies and off-the-plan duplexes. You might be able to find something like that where it's just like in a rising area, be like, I don't have the money, but the builder is going to go build it. The seller is going to do it. The value of it is pretty good. It's a locked-in price, and the delivery of this is in a year. I don't have the money, but I need time to save up.
Yeah.
I might go buy that.
Yep, that could work. Yeah, sometimes harder, like you say, for big OTPs to get an on-sale clause. Same conceptually, it's the same idea. You're basically buying something that doesn't exist at the moment, and you're hoping at the time when it does technically exist, you've got some capital growth that you can cash in on immediately.
Yes. I think I've got added in here is a house and land sort of approach where you buy the land and you also put the house on it. And if you could find a way to do that for 350, 400,000, which is going to be very hard to do, but the stamp duty component will be cheaper. So you've probably got a 400,000 to budget. If you can find a way to do that, extremely hard to do in a rising area, it could work. Some of these areas have lower price points. So maybe you could look at this opportunity as well. So there's a few additional opportunities. If you want to add in some bells and whistles, you want to get super advanced, you can start looking at these approaches too. And it's what we did. I bought off the plan a duplex in Sydney that was registering 6 months after I had bought it. That was my first purchase out in Western Sydney. A little bit of a land that's not registered situation, and that really built up my property portfolio because it's worth 100 grand more after I'd actually moved into it or settled it as an investor within a 6-month period. It was a rising area at the time.
Okay, so there's some of the initial strategies to make the initial purchase, and the idea being as you get access to more equity from purchase number one, cash needs to be working for you. You need leverage in order to get where you're going to go. So as soon as you have any kind of access to cash, it goes into the next thing.
Yes. But what you're going to find out after you've executed this approach, let's just call it the foundational bit, the beginning approach. After you've executed this approach, you're now going to start approaching a serviceability issue. You're like, hey, I've just bought all these properties. Be like, sweet, now I can't get any more money from banks because the banks aren't giving me any more money.
Yep.
This is where I like to stretch the boat a little bit further. How do I stretch it so I can keep getting a little bit more money and add more foundational assets in my initial years? This is the stretch area, and this is about increasing my income or using finance strategies to get a little bit more money, go to non-banks, use the spectrum of non-banks, cycle through the non-banks if I need to, speak to a whiz like you and be like, get me more money. What can I do? What are my options? Do I have money in my super? Unlikely in this situation, but do I have money in my super? How can I potentially continue to borrow in my personal name to keep borrowing? That is something that I'm looking at in the stretch years. I may be considering second jobs, casual income, part-time income, anything, maybe a side hustle that I can use after 6 months. Anything that can boost my income up. That will really help someone like you to be like, hey, you can borrow more. I found a way to get another property. You've added $10,000 in income. I've stretched this out to be another property purchase for you. Increase my yields, maybe do small little bits of work on the properties. Whatever it takes, increase my income is now my focus for years 2, 3 to stretch out the amount that I can borrow.
Yeah, and this is a very, very common conversational part of the journey. So on the financing side of things, the numbers always normally come down to deposit, which can be equity or cash, but how much deposit do you have and how much borrowing power do you have?
Yes.
And when people start, normally deposit is the problem. It's like, I'm limited by my 50K. I don't have 51K. I don't have 52K. I got 50. That's the number that I got. Yep. So you're limited by that. But as you start buying properties and they go up in value and you get equity, that becomes plentiful, and eventually you run into the other problem, which is, okay, my borrowing power is tapped out. So that's when, like you say, the focus has to change a little bit to go, okay, I have a slightly different problem to solve now. Now my goal to keep growing is to get my income as high as I can to take this further. So that's where, second jobs, anything you can do to increase your income, put the rents up. That's often not that much you can do there, but anything you can do, pay rises, second jobs, that becomes the problem that you're trying to solve to keep growing.
Yeah, I love that. So we started off with the deposit problem, 50K, but we've made all these moves. We either bought units, did renos in rising areas, we've bought into locations that have gone absolutely flying, and we've bought really well timing-wise. We've done our research, we've picked the areas, we've ridden the wave. We've mentioned a whole range of locations that you can look at, a whole different range of strategies that you can do. Now, later on, you approach your borrowing capacity wall, find a way to increase your income if you can, and then adapt to your property strategy to squeeze out the last property or two to go and increase that foundational asset base further. You can squeeze. You can find a way to get another one or two via income rises if it's possible for you, working overtime, whatever it is. Do what you can. Increase that hustle into increasing your income. Now you have a focused hustle. The purpose is, how do I increase my serviceability and understanding that and then building there. Once I'm doing this, I'm pivoting my locations. I'm actually looking into Melbourne now because it's probably the year 2025, 2026. I'm happy for missing the first 10% of Melbourne. It's ridiculously undervalued compared to all the other states in its growth cycle. So I'm happy just missing the first little bit, being like, if the Melbourne wave has started, I'm just jumping on that a little bit later. Be like, cool, going to get some exposure to, a nice solid asset here. That's the asset that I'm trying to buy this year 2, year 3 period. And I think I might be timing it with market cycles pretty well here.
Yeah. And just another point, I think mindset-wise, this is a transition that people, I think, sometimes struggle with or get slightly wrong. Like, as you go through this journey, it's not a matter of you build a lot of equity and you solve problems and then it's all sunshine and lollipops kind of things.
Yep.
As you go through, you just get different problems to solve. So you start with a deposit problem, you solve that. Then you have an income problem, you have to find a way to solve that.
Yes.
So the problems don't go away, but you're solving better problems. The further through the journey you go, you're solving better problems.
You get better at it too.
But it's not you don't have any problems. You just have to start solving different problems.
Yes. You're also going to own a lot of properties. That means some problems you have to solve.
It's a sign of that you're actually successful in working your way through the journey, that you're like, all right, I've put one problem to the side now and I now have my next problem to focus on.
Yes. I think Curtis is actually touching back on the mindset component that we talked about earlier, being resourceful, being accountable, taking action. Now it is a little bit about solving problems.
Yeah.
And as you grow as an individual, as your portfolio, as you get older, the better you start solving problems, the more problems you solve, the higher the value of the problems you solve,
Yeah.
the more effectively value creation that you're going to be creating. So that is something that you go and do. And that's a mindset sort of component to it too. Let's pivot. Now I need to circle back towards my goals. Obviously, I had really, really high ambitions there. That 100K passive income, I need 2 million net assets plus my owner occupier. That's kind of what I'm looking at. This is where I am completely pivoting early. I've bought in Darwin. It's been 3 or 4 years. I'm out of there. I'm out of anywhere I've bought. I'm out of all of these investments that I've actually purchased. This is the part that is different to what every single person will tell you. And it is the part that I have done successfully and has helped me go from a certain level in property investing to achieving deals that are much, much bigger and taking a leap forward. And the goals that I have here require me to take leaps. So this is what I'm doing. I am selling up pretty much everything I've bought in the first year or two. They're all in my personal name. I think I've made a pretty healthy profit through here. I've turned my 50K. Hopefully it's somewhere in that $1 million range, depending on how much time it's been, how well the Darwin asset has been, how many I've picked up. Depending on my income situation, that's allowed me to pick my foundational asset base level, 1 to 3 million, whatever my asset base is. That should dictate the amount of money I have when I'm selling. I wouldn't do this at a particular point in time, year 4, year 5. That's arbitrary. I'd be picking it around market cycles.
Yeah.
And the timing of this, I'd be offloading these properties, reducing my asset base. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I am taking the next leg up forward. And sometimes you got to take a step backwards to take 2 steps forwards. And property investing is that time. I'm getting rid of all this debt that's in my personal name because I want to buy my PPOR and I need money for it. I need to release the capital. I don't want a huge owner-occupier debt. I want to pay my taxes, pay my dues. I'm being successful. I made money, pay the ATO, get whatever I have back, use it to buy my house in Sydney, fund as much of it as I can, depending on the amount that I actually need. Probably provide a 20% deposit at least and keep the rest in offsets and have it available for future investing and debt recycle that out. We'll do a different podcast on that in terms of structure. That's what I'm doing with it. And then, or if I don't want my PPOI straight away, I am starting to invest in structures, in companies and trusts because I need to protect my borrowing power for when I do want to buy my PPOR. So if I want to keep buying assets, buy them in company names now and keep that borrowing power there for my PPOR. Curse, what you'd notice here is I didn't say I'm going to go start this by I'm going to go invest in companies and trusts that I barely understand. I don't even know what a trust is, which is what 99% of new investors are.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to go make it happen. I'm going to take action. I'm not going to put roadblockers in my way in understanding complexities that I don't need to understand. I'm going to just take real action now and not put in roadblocks. And then I'm going to pivot. Do you notice how that's a little bit different to what everyone else is saying? It's like accepting selling and then pivoting into a different structure later. Now that I'm really an advanced investor, I've bought more properties in my life than anyone else, than most people have, and I've taken a lot of action. I understand markets. I know what's worked. I know what hasn't worked. I've spoken to lots of people. I've got networks, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the not putting roadblocks in front of yourself is a key point. If you're starting with a low base, you don't need the most complex involved structures. You don't need to make it more difficult than it needs to be. Your goal is to get through those, I don't know how you describe them, baby steps, turning your 50 into 100, your 100 into 200, your 200 into 400.
Yes.
Working your way through that process as quickly as possible and with as few roadblocks and complexities as possible.
Yes.
And then once you get there, that's when you can start playing around with things a little bit.
Exactly. Yep. So my foundational assets, I had about 5 of them. I've sold all of them. And now almost everything that I own is in companies and trusts and my PPOR. That is the general structure that advanced investors get to. And everyone that I've spoken to that has built serious wealth through property, that is the approach that they've taken. They downsize that personal property portfolio, but they do it, they get the skills, and then they pivot over into the company and lending structures to protect themselves. That's a big reason for it, not just borrowing power, and then continue to grow that way. Okay, so we are running out of time here, so let's wrap this up as this is a crazy, crazy approach. We talked really risky approaches in this podcast. I'm not going and telling you to go and do this. I'm saying that if you have ridiculously high goals in a short time period, you will need to take on risk. We talked about how you can frame that risk into fairly safe plays as well, into property assets by using data, by being really, really clever with areas you're looking at and property strategies to look at, and by taking action. Combining all of these things, regardless of where you actually end up, you will be further ahead than doing nothing. That bit I'm sure of, and I encourage people, anyone taking away something from this is take that message away. You'll need to take action to make your dreams happen. And I hope this podcast has helped inspire you in some capacity to take some of that action. For those that are still listening, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button on YouTube, the bell notification and the thumbs up, it will really help. And if you want us to do something about your own situation or any specific type of content you'd like us to do, drop it in the comments below. It'll really help us deliver the content that you want to see.